Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast, and my name is Naz. Let's talk about the future fight between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane. So it was a massive fight in Houston, Texas. Ciryl Gane defeats Derrick TKO punches in the third round. He wins the interim heavyweight championship of the world. It was a very controversial fight due to the fact that Francis Ngannou said that there was no need for an interim belt. He was available to fight whoever the UFC deemed was next. So it ended up happening no matter what Francis Ngannou said. And Ciryl Gane ended up winning that interim heavyweight title. So this sets up a massive fight for both of these spectacular fighters. Francis Ngannou, the knockout master, the king, if you will, doing some amazing things in his very short career in fighting, if you will. He only started training in the sport later in his life, a lot later than most mixed martial artists in the UFC or in any other MMA organization. This guy's done some amazing things right off the bat. The Alistair Overeem knockout was something so spectacular just because at the time he'd defeated Andrei Arlovsky and Curtis Blades and some other notable names. But then you got Alistair Overeem, who was decorated striker in other organizations. And for Francis Ngannou to do what he did in that fight was just amazing to watch. To watch it live was even crazier. It looked like it looked like it was just lights out. I've never seen anything like that, of someone just automatically just engaging with someone and then they just drop like that. A lot of people said it looked like Alistair Overeem's head went into the bleachers. But for me, it was just right when that exchange started, because I believe it was right off of the referee pulled him off the cage and they went into striking engagement, and right away Alistair Overeem just dropped to the ground and we were all confused, and Francis Ngannou was walking around the ring and beating his chest for what he did. Was one of the most spectacular things because of the striking acumen that Alistair Overeem comes in with. And for Francis Ngannou to do that to him was just amazing to watch. After that, he did get the title shot against Stipe Miocic, who at the time unlocked the code, if you will, against Francis Ngannou. Then we saw the Derrick Lewis fight, where that was almost that was one of those fights that didn't really deliver on what we thought it would be. Both fighters came in there very reserved and knew the devastating power the other person possessed. Derrick Lewis having, I think it's the second most knockouts in UFC history, second most knockouts in UFC heavyweight history. He would have had the most knockouts if he would have knocked out Ciryl Gane. That's how close it was, I believe. But that was almost the Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou fight was one of those ones that both fighters were really hesitant to throw any strikes. Then we saw the Curtis Blades fight for Francis Ngannou after that, where it was a big test for him. Everybody thought that the first one against Curtis Blades was a fluke. One of the best wrestlers at this time in the UFC would be one of the most difficult tests for Francis Ngannou, but he was able to knock him out for the second time. And then we saw him against Cain Velasquez, and that was a great knockout in the first round. That might be due to other things, but Cain Velasquez has always had injuries. He's very injury prone. So who knows what he had going into that fight, but he was able to knock out one of the greatest heavyweights in the first round, which was just amazing. And again, it was just like the lights got turned off as soon as Francis Ngannou hit Cain Velasquez. Then we saw the JDS fight. That was also a TKO. Then we saw the Rosenstrike fight, which was a KO in the first round, which that fight was highly anticipated to see Rosenstrike come in there with his striking abilities. And for Francis Ngannou to do what he did to him was just amazing. I've said this a couple times going through this list now, but what Francis Ngannou has done to the seasoned strikers in this heavyweight division is amazing, because you think about the years that those guys have spent striking heavyweight competition at the top of the food chain, and you see it here. It's all first round knockout, a couple of third round knockouts, or TKOs, and it's, you just see first round knockout all over this guy's resume. And then he went back and defeated one of the demons that somewhat haunted him, which was that Stipe Miocic fight. He was able to TKO or KO him in the second round, which he also showed a little bit of his wrestling. He showed different aspects of his game. At this point, I believe, was the full change of his coaching, which we're going to talk about when we go through Ciryl Gane's resume. But at this point, Francis Ngannou had switched up his coaching team. He switched up a lot of things. He started working with Usman a lot more, and it evolved his game a little bit. Who knows if he had all of that stuff when he was with his old team, and he never had the ability to show it. It never came up in a fight. But for him to start using it against arguably the greatest heavyweight champion in the UFC was just amazing to watch. Stipe was coming off of those brutal fights with DC, and I think it was the first one there where he got brutally knocked out. It was up close and personal. It was a hard knockout, and it was a hard punch thrown. And who knows the after effects that might have had against Stipe Miocic. So let's go through Ciryl Gane's career. We went through it in the previous podcast. Before in the lead up to the Derrick Lewis fight. Obviously, he defeated Derrick Lewis in his latest fight with TKO punches in the third round. That was a tough fight to watch because Derrick Lewis, being the native of Houston, Texas, wasn't able to get the job done, and for him to lose the way he did was just tough to watch, because Ciryl Gane saw the light at the end of the tunnel there and really went after Derrick Lewis when Derrick Lewis showed a little bit of chink in his armor and shelled up just for a bit, and he just put it into the next gear and really put it on Derrick Lewis and hit him with the output that was not able to be matched. I think in that fight, TJ Dillashaw hit the nail on the head in his commentary during the fight, where he was a little bit nervous right upon hearing that Derrick Lewis was switching up his training style, doing things a lot differently than he usually does. Usually his style is a lot more laxed from our understanding and from what he's put out there in the media. But before UFC 265, he was saying that he was working out a lot more, doing double days, and just going harder in the gym, which worried TJ Dillashaw. And I think there's really some points to take out of what TJ Dillashaw is saying, which is, why fix what's not broken? It was really working for Derrick Lewis before this fight. I don't think that Derrick Lewis is just going to be thrown off to the side. He's a big name. He's got a big following. He's had a lot of fights in the UFC. His win-loss record is not that bad if you look at it all together. He's had some wins against some spectacular fighters, Curtis Blades included, Oleinik included, and he's fought the likes of DC and Francis Ngannou and Mark Hunt. All of those fights for him elevate his status. But what Ciryl Gane was able to do against Derrick Lewis was amazing because of the crowd being behind Derrick Lewis, him coming in as an outsider, not only to Houston, but also coming in there as a Frenchman going against an American. It was even more tough for him. So what he did was just spectacular, what he was able to do with the output that he's had, especially with the amount of fights that he's had. He has had professionally, which is only 10 fights. But what a lot of commentators and a lot of people have mentioned before is his extensive amateur career, his Muay Thai career, also being involved there. His Muay Thai record is pretty long. He's had, I think it was 13 wins in his Muay Thai career. And he's had an extensive amateur career as well. So this guy's coming in with this record of 10-0, but he's had a lot more fights than that. This is what's happening with the new generation of fighters that are going in. There's amateur leagues that are now pushing these guys and girls to the next level and bringing them in with a whole lot of amateur experience. And what Ciryl Gane's done, if we just look at his record, some of the notable names on there: JDS, he got him with that TKO elbow at UFC 256. In 2020, he got him in the second round with that. And then Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who we were talking about in the Francis Ngannou review of his resume. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is an amazing test because of what he's done in the heavyweight division, what he's done outside of the UFC, the amazing striking capabilities that he possesses, and not only that, having the technical ability that Rozenstruik has, but mixing that with the devastating power he has. The Rozenstruik is a big test for anybody, and for Ciryl Gane to come away with a unanimous decision win against him was amazing to watch. It showed the technicality that he has for him to go against Volkov and win that one in decision win. I think that kind of put a little bit of the narrative that he might be a boring fighter, but that's not the case, because we saw him go against the most powerful guy in the heavyweight division, who was knocking out everybody. Even in the later rounds, Derrick Lewis was knocking people out. Even in the last round, he was knocking people out right before the bell was about to ring. So this guy possesses power late, and Ciryl Gane stood toe-to-toe with him. And I talked about this in the preview show right before these two fought, but my main takeaway, and this is just, it's obvious, I'm not coming here with something new, but the way he's able to move in the heavyweight division, the way he's able to fluidly throw his kicks and punches and switch stances while he's throwing strikes just shows a sophistication that is most of the time reserved for the lower weight classes. And it's not something that we usually see in the heavyweight division. We usually see people in the heavyweight division just throw leather, just throw caution to the wind and go for the knockouts. We've seen a couple specialists that come in with their jiu-jitsu specialist, they come in just using their jiu-jitsu. We've seen that in the heavyweight division. We've seen amazing strikers in the heavyweight division. But for Ciryl Gane, with his Muay Thai career, with his amateur career, and I think all of that combined is showing us why this guy is so amazing to watch, and what this fight between Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou is going to look like. I think that the fight is going to be real technical from Ciryl Gane's point of view. He's going to take a lot from the first Stipe fight that Francis Ngannou had against Stipe. But I think Ciryl Gane's going to take away a lot from that. He's going to use a lot of those tactics, but mix in the sophisticated striking that I was talking about earlier. Throw a lot of fakes, throw a lot of stance switches in there. We all know that Stipe is one of the best boxers in the heavyweight division, but we know that Ciryl Gane is capable of doing a lot more with his Muay Thai style. So from Francis Ngannou's point of view, I think that he is just evolving his game to the next level. We'll see if he's able to bring in a lot more of the wrestling. I'm not saying that he's going to go in there Khabib style and take out Ciryl Gane there. But what I'm saying is that even with a little bit of grappling exchange, because Ciryl Gane is coming from that Muay Thai style, it is a striking art, but it does encompass some grappling sometimes, well, a lot of the times. And I think Francis Ngannou is going to be a lot more comfortable in those situations as opposed to a couple years ago. So I think from Ciryl Gane, it's going to be one of those sophisticated striking exchanges or striking battles. For Francis Ngannou, it's going to be about putting the pressure on Ciryl Gane, getting him to back up, which we didn't see much of. We didn't see it at all in the Derrick Lewis fight. We haven't seen it at all during his UFC career. I think Francis Ngannou has to back up Ciryl Gane, has to get him on his bike and really go after him, get in his face, because he needs to recognize and remember the fact that he has the power going into this fight. Another interesting thing is Ciryl Gane still with Fernand Lopez, I believe, who's the team out of France. And they were training partners together, so there were some things that were taken away. But I don't put much stock into that. I put a little bit, there's tendencies. There's also the fact that you've seen this person before. You've seen this person standing in front of you. You've seen this person wanting to take your head off. So there's a little bit of that taken out the window. But I don't put much stock into you can game plan. You can see tendencies of fighters. But at the end of the day, when those bright lights are shining down on you, you're not the same fighter that you are in training camp or fighting your training partners. It's just not the same. There's just so much going into it, especially with fans coming back. Hopefully this one can be in France, like Dana White was semi-alluding to, what some journalists have been talking about. I don't have that high hopes on that, but because since Ciryl Gane has the belt now, they're going to look to make this fight sometime soon. So if that's the case, then I don't think the UFC will have the infrastructure. You know, the UFC has done some amazing stuff, like the Abu Dhabi Fight Island, and doing all that so quickly. So we might be in the dark on something that they might be working on. But how perfect would it be if this one was in France, the first UFC show in France? They're a big reason why it got legalized in France, and for them to have two champions. You know, Francis Ngannou still reps his home country, but France was a big part of the development. This is how he got into the sport of MMA, boxing at first, but now in MMA and becoming a champion. And two French-speaking fighters fighting for that heavyweight title, the baddest man on the planet. And it's in a country that just legalized the sport of MMA. How amazing. What a storybook ending that would be for either one of these fighters. Not an ending, but, you know, a chapter in their career. It would be really spectacular to see and to watch. I'd be really happy to see that one. So thank you for listening to me. Thank you for taking the time out of your day and listening to me talk on this podcast. I really appreciate it. And if you can like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube, that'd be amazing. Leave a comment below. Let's talk about this. What do you think this fight is going to look like? And how do you see it playing out? I really want to know your thoughts and let me know. Drop a comment down below. Also, leave a review on iTunes. Hit 5 stars on iTunes and all the different podcast platforms if you're listening to this on YouTube or anywhere else. This podcast is available on any podcast platform out there. So I really appreciate it. Thank you again. My name is Naz. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. Bye.